There we go. All right, so that's running. Oh, I like how it does that. I noticed what it does, Dave, when it starts my video at the beginning when it starts going live. That's cool. I never noticed it did that. All right, I make sure we're live everywhere else. Yeah, you might want to turn your volume down on the. I'm gonna. Yeah, I think that's because I gotta mute these things. I'll take care of that. Because when I watch on Facebook and YouTube, I have to mute the audio there. There. The echo should be gone. Yeah, we're looking good. Everything's streaming. Starting to gain viewers. I gotta find out. I think there's a way to send out notifications to all YouTube subscribers that you're gonna have a live stream upcoming. Because I get those messages from other people I subscribe to when they're gonna go live. Like an hour before I get an email or a notification. Actually, an email. What's that?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Thursday night, a few nights before Halloween, and we are live. I'm Dixie Dave.
We are live, I gotta say, Dave. Finally again, right?
Exactly.
And, we're live, but this is not going to be live tonight, of course. We're going back to October 18th, 1986, Dave, and a very special night for you, I have to say. Not only was it your birthday, but I'll let you tell.
Well, we'll let it play out. We don't want to give away too many surprises.
Let's just say this. The last show we did, we had watched the July 26 Armory card, and there was like a whopping 50 fans. Which, honestly, Dave, wasn't a bad night for an independent show for 50 people, really.
Exactly.
But we were expecting hundreds, and didn't happen. I was devastated. I really took that personally. And I realized what we did wrong, and I made a goal. We were going to sell out the Armory on the next one. And I gave us 2.5 months to prepare, and lo and behold, 450 fans that night.
Well, you know what the key was, Crusher.
I know what you're going to say.
The key
Dixie
was,
Dave was on the card.
Yeah, you booked Dixie Dave for the show. I mean,
odd. Think about it though. Dixie Dave and Rattlesnake Jake. Talk about polar opposites. What an odd tag team combination. The characters.
It worked.
It did work. And yeah, we'll talk about that match when we get into it, and the what was going on behind the scenes there and why the finish went the way it did. We won't give anything away, but once we get to that match and stuff and it happens, we'll explain what was all happening behind the scenes there that created that match.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
We've discussed this before, Crusher. I find it no coincidence that the night you booked Dixie Dave on his birthday, it's a sellout. Now think about
Yeah,
it, Crusher. Think about it. The only card that you booked me on, and we sold out.
well, we did. And remember, though, it was supposed to be October 17th. If you notice those promos and stuff, but the
Yep.
date got changed because the Armory was double booked by mistake and we had to move it by a day. But,
Exactly.
and it just happened to fall on your birthday as well. So it was like, yeah, sellout crowd on your birthday and everything. What more could you ask when you turn 12?
Well, the world
I
champion
think you
quit
turned
ducking
12.
me, but
I think you turned 12 or 13. I can't remember.
13 that year.
Was it 13? Yeah.
Yep.
So Terry Costnapple in the house. Terry, got to have you on here one of these days. So let us know when you're ready because we want to have you come on. You know what I really want to do, Dave? I want to have Terry come on when we do the August Armory card, whenever we get to that.
Yep.
Yeah, because he was on that show. He had a great match with John Hoffman's younger brother. Uh, what was it? I think of his name. John Hoffman. Gosh, I can't think of his name now. It slipped my mind. But his younger brother, and he had a good match with Terry.
Yep.
Yeah. So also Gizmo in the house tonight. Hey, Gizmo, nice to see you again. And
I
it's
was
going
good to
to be
see the
Dave's night.
regulars.
He
You
says
know,
I can see it's going to be Dave's night. Yeah, it is. This is Dixie Dave's highlight for sure. Let's not. And so I'm going to let you do all the talking when it comes to your match.
oh, okay. And I was thinking about it, Crusher. How fitting it is that we watch the show tonight.
What's that?
Well, it's the Halloween season. We were in Anoka, Minnesota for this Armory show. And
Yeah.
what's Anoka known for?
Halloween capital of the world.
Exactly. And tomorrow is the big parade of little people there.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't know that, that's a little unknown fact by a lot of people. Anoka, Minnesota is the Halloween capital of the world that was actually brought to the Congress in the early 1900s and went through legislation and everything. And there's a whole story behind it, but we don't have to get into that. But if you're ever curious, you should, if you Google that, you can find out the history. It's quite interesting how they came up with that. Why, basically, to put it in a nutshell, that's where trick or treating began. There's a reason, but there was a reason why they wanted to do it because the kids were causing mischief, putting wagons on top of barns and stuff like that, soaping windows. They weren't
Yep.
getting. Yeah. Anyways, enough of that. We got to get to our show, Dave. Should we start
That,
the stream? Get going on
that,
this?
ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a long stream. You're looking at 2 hours plus of Crusher, Crossen and Dixie Dave tonight.
So yeah, feel free to ask questions along the way. I know Gizmo and company are always good for that because I don't know if we'll have a whole lot of time after the show to do our after hours like we usually do. Next show, Dave, we'll get back to like an hour long. One of our hour shows. We'll
Yep.
take a break from these Armory cards. But tonight, we're going back to. So I can get it up here for everybody. We're going to be watching the NWF's Fall Brawl Supercard from the Anoka Armory, recorded on October 18th, 1986. This wasn't initially called the Supercard, the Fall Brawl Supercard. That was done for the DVD releases. The original name, I have the program guide right here, was the NWF Wrestling Presents the Fall Super Spectacular card. And that's supposed to represent Luscious Larry. But he has an NWF belt, but he didn't have the NWF belt. And of course, the original lineup of the show that night. And then here, Dave, I'm reading the Invaders versus Rattlesnake Jake and Dixie Dave. So
And
it made the program guide. So we had it known well in advance enough for that.
well, we did know back in September that we were changing
Yeah,
the match, as I remember.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to start this show. And we'll be able to keep talking here, but let's get things rolling.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this show tonight, it is available. The card is available on the NWF website under products.
It is available, and I'll tell you something, Jason. Dave was nervous as hell right now doing this.
Yep.
He was super nervous to go out there because the reason was there were some people in the crowd that had questioned. They thought it was going to be AWA All Star Wrestling because of the way we advertised our posters. It
Yep.
just said All Star Wrestling. And so there were some people coming up asking Jason, I thought this was going to be, professional wrestling. And Jason was like, well, sir, it is. Yeah, it was so he was nervous. I remember him coming up to me in the back room saying, I don't know if I can do this. I don't want to go out there. They're going to start chucking things at me when I open this thing up. I said, hey, Jason, just relax here. I said, most of the people out there know what's happening. They know what to expect. This is not our first night at the Armory. We've been here twice, and I said, you're going to be fine. I think I told him, I said, let's just start out as NWF Junior Professional Wrestling. Get that off your chest. Let everybody know so you can go for it. And that's how he did it. I kind
Yep.
of helped coach him on that a little bit because he was nervous. Jason was a nervous Nelly back in the day. He was always skeptical of things. Where I was the one that was always wanting to go, let's do it. Jason was my counterbalance.
Yep.
Always questioning things, behind the scenes it is. So
And I
even
forgot
doing
which gimmick this was that he was doing.
Mr. Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, Dr. Death. So Steve wrestled 3 times on this show. He did Dr. Death, Mr. X, and Pretty Boy Taylor. Here he's Dr. Death. He's calling
Yep.
himself. I'm not sure why we had Steve work 3 times. I think we just needed a match for Chad.
Yep.
Chad is Dr. Destruction. Chad Rancourt, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he's a really,
He's a good
really
hand.
good. Yeah, he's a good hand, good character, great personality. I mean, really likable off camera. Nice guy, but very, very smooth and easy to work with in the ring. I never did a match on camera with him, but I did a lot of working out with him in the ring back when
Yep.
he was in the show. When we were having our training days and stuff. Super easy to work with. He had some amateur wrestling background, and I always say that helps. When you
Exactly. Exactly.
But trouble with Dr. Destruction, though, he was supposed to be a heel, but he was a good-looking kid back then, and he just got a lot of cheers. He's one of those guys, Dave, that just couldn't get the heel to work.
You couldn't get the heel heat.
Couldn't get the heel heat. Ace Andrew Carlson, that we had on a few months ago, he had the same problem initially because he was very likable at school. So they wanted to be a heel, both these guys. Chad Rancourt also was the first Rattlesnake Jake. On that July card we watched a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
He was actually Rattlesnake Jake there before Nick took it over. Dominant.
Yep.
Nick Dumas.
Yep.
So Mr. Destroyer was the Rattlesnake Jake from here on out.
Well, for in-ring action,
Yeah, in the ring. Mm-hmm.
but for the interviews, it was Jason Clausen.
Yeah, because only Jason could do that voice. It was very hard for anybody else to get that Rattlesnake Jake voice.
That growly, gravelly.
Yeah, kind of a Mad Dog Vachon style voice. Is the best way to describe that, right?
Yep.
And it's no surprise Jason did this character that way because one of Jason's, I don't know if you know this, but one of Jason's favorite guys that he was always influenced by in wrestling was Mad Dog Vachon. So it's no surprise that he kind of did a Mad Dog in a mask.
Yep. Well, Jason had so many personalities in the ring.
Yeah, lots of managers. Again, Steve Engstrom, he's the one that's playing Dr. Death here. Pretty easy to work with there as well. Dave, I know we had your match, but that he wasn't. But for the most part, Steve sold really well for people. I mean,
Well,
just watching this.
that's what everybody says, but
Yeah, it's a shame you didn't get to have. I think Jamie was right back on that show when you guys were talking about that and saying that he was probably trying to, he was kind of thinking like, he's going to go with Larry and do all that stuff and stiff these kids, right?
Yep.
Let's just stiff on the kid, be stiff with the kids, yeah.
Make him not want to be a part of it anymore.
Right.
But hey, as you and I both know, it didn't deter me.
Where's the NCWA now today? Do they have a podcast? Do they have anything? They have nothing. It was a short-lived thing. Well, not that we were long-lived, but at least I'd like to think our story and our history has lived on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it,
What's that, Dave?
And I hate to say it, but did the NCWA ever work with Ed Sharkey?
No, Sharkey did not. Him and Jim Mitchell did not get along at all. They were not friendly with each other. So that was a bitter competition between them two.
I rest my case. We were good enough.
Yeah.
Ed Sharkey came to us asking to work.
Yeah, we were in good. We had an affiliation with Eddie Sharkey. We did not with Jim Mitchell.
Exactly. Well, you think about it. We had affiliation with Ed Sharkey. We had affiliation with Vern Gagne.
Yeah.
We kept in contact with that right now.
Yeah, played it well. For those of you who don't know how the figure four works, when they always pull down on the leg, they're actually relieving the pressure. If you pushed up on it, you'd break their knee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing I never understood with Flair, I've watched some of his matches.
Yeah.
And he always works over the knee that bends when he does a figure four.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's had a figure four put on him, you know what leg hurts. It's the one that's straight. That's the painful one. Yeah. So I was going to say, Rick Pitt, am I loud enough, I hope? If I'm not loud enough, you guys, let me know in comments, because I don't know how I'm using a new mic now, because I didn't like the way the headset was acting up the last couple shows. But anyway, Rick Pitts is reffing. Now, this is a very sober Rick Pitts tonight, Dave. I think he got the message from me last time. Rick, you can't show up plastered and blitz like that again. Not going to work.
Exactly.
So, Rick wasn't the only one reffing tonight. We had, I think, two other adult refs as well. So we had like a rotation of 3 referees this evening.
Okay, Sports Talk says you sound good, Crusher.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure because, when I used the webcam mic last week when my headset went out, it was really tinny. I listened to the playback when I watched the show.
Win by Chad.
Yeah, Chad wins. We give him a win. Chad had just been suspended. Ice Dragon was suspended for this show, and that's what we're going to talk about. For real, like we did real suspensions. I talked about this with disciplinary reasons.
Our suspensions weren't kayfabe where they'd come back under a mask while they were suspended.
Right. When you were suspended, you really were suspended. And sometimes we did storyline suspensions, but for the most part, suspensions were legitimate.
Yep.
And Ice Dragon was suspended, which it was supposed to be the Ice Dragon and that guy there, Dr. Destruction, as a tag team against the Invaders.
Right.
That was the big angle we were working from the last show at the Armory. Well, Chris and Chad was kind of in on it too. They did some stuff behind the scenes, kind of getting into it with some of the guys off the camera on that, and I had to suspend them. And Chris's was more of an instigator of it, so he had a longer suspension. Chad was able to come back for the show, but kind of lost his shot at the tag team match.
Yep.
That's what happened. And Dixie Dave suggested, how about me and Rattlesnake Jake?
Right now, Sergeant Smash, anybody you'd like to have?
Well, let's see. I don't know who it's gonna be, but we're gonna have the best, right?
Money talks.
I can bring this audio up a little bit for these interviews
And still mysterious. JP Kramer, the
so you guys can hear it. That was pretty short-lived. So Ref Ryan and Sergeant Smash against the Destroyers. And this is this is the only change on the card, Dave. This match was supposed to be Ref Ryan, Sergeant Smash, and Rock and Roll Reinholds, the guy from back in the garage days.
Yep.
Wrestlers from back then. Against Destroyers 1 and 2 and Tough Tony. Well, Tough Tony, okay, Destroyers 1 and 2 are here, that's these guys. Tough Tony didn't make it, and Rock and Roll Reinholds did make it, and they just didn't show up. And I'm not sure. Whenever we get Tony Levitt on, we'll have to ask what happened with that, because I still don't know why he didn't make this show. But, yeah, they didn't make it, so the match became a tag team match instead of a six-man. So
Well, you know what they always say, card subject to change.
Yeah, card subject to change. It's what happens, and that one changed, so this match got brought down to tag team. Now, the Destroyers 1 and 2. Remember we were just talking about Terry Kosnopple? He's in the house tonight?
Yep.
Well, Terry Kosnopple is the Destroyer 1, right there in the ring, locking up with Ref Ryan. So Terry would be the one that's wearing all blue.
Yep.
And where Ref Ryan's in the kind of the gray shirt and the gray shorts. And Terry, this is Terry's first match on camera after me training him, basically in your courtyard of the apartments that you lived in.
Well, no, I thought it was the courtyard over by Robinwood.
It is, yeah.
Robinwood
That's Robinwood and Target there, yeah. There's an open field. That's where Terry got trained. That's the only place. We didn't have a place to set up the ring at the time, and so yeah. So, you know, Terry, and he does pretty well. You know, he sells pretty well, and that's the thing. When I train people for this, I don't show them offensive moves. I show them how to take bumps, how to sell, how to make it look like you're, you know, that's my thing. You know, I'm trying to show them how to, you know, take the moves. Like, we did a lot of suplexes on the ground, like what he just did there. You know, people say, "Well, gosh, isn't that going to hurt?" When you're a kid, man, you're so flexible
and so resilient.
Resilient, yeah. You can do those kind of things. Now, it would hurt today, but spent many nights though with Terry though, Dave.
Oh yeah.
Because he hadn't gotten any ring time whatsoever, you know, so he needed some attention for this one.
Well, I mean, you think back to my debut match. My training was, okay, kid, get in the ring.
Yeah, it's kind of when you first joined the show, we had weekly tapings, you know, you'd show up and you'd be signing and you'd be saying you're going against him and nobody says anything and you're in the ring, right?
Yep.
It's kind of the, you know, because we don't know if you're going to stick around. So, we don't want to give away anything right away.
Yep.
So
gotta keep kayfabe alive.
So as you can see, this is a multi-camera shot, and what it is, it's two cameras going around the ring along with the stationary camera that we have here, this shot. And it's a hard edit, so these are individual cameras recording with their own tapes, and then I had to edit this all together afterwards.
What's he gonna do? Oh, into the turnbuckles, and he makes the take.
Yep, I remember like a week or so after the show, all of us getting together at Dell's.
Yeah. This night was huge. So the way this went was, you know, we were billing the big Luscious Larry against the NWF's very own Pretty Boy Taylor. We were making it like Larry was an outsider, coming in to take care of this big mouth Pretty Boy Taylor, who's in this kid's show that he shouldn't belong, right?
Yep.
We never said that, but that's kind of the angle we were building this as. And we had a lot of good matches. Yours, mine. There was a lot of good matches on this show to begin with. And so the way we did this is we build it and advertised it on our weekly show. We spent 2.5 months promoting this every week on the show. Now I don't have those tapes anymore because we couldn't create new matches at that time period, so we just used old matches. But we kept doing new interviews every week. I'm sure you remember the interviews that you were
Oh yeah.
we just don't have them anymore. Even Terry Kosnop was in on those interviews, but on those shows. But
Good old Group W.
so then I get a call from, so the tickets were being sold in advance at the Northern Bank in downtown Anoka, and I get a call from them about 2 weeks out saying, we're just wondering, do you have any more tickets? Because we sold through the tickets you gave us. And I'm thinking, my jaw's dropping. Like, are you serious? I mean, I gave them 100 tickets, and they sold through them. I didn't expect 100 pre-sale. So I said, yeah, I'll get you some more. So I brought them down I gave them another 100, figuring that will hold them over. And in about a week to go, they called and said, hey, we sold through those. Do you have any more? We got people coming in still asking. So I gave them another 100 tickets, but then they didn't sell all those. We had like 250 advance tickets sold for this. I knew right then and there, Dave, this was going to be a big night.
Oh yeah.
And then we get another 200 through the door. There was standing room. We didn't have enough chairs for everybody, so there's standing room only was what was left. The guy who runs the armory was coming up to me saying, there's a capacity limit to the building. I think he can't have more than 500 and some people. I said, from what I know what we sold in advance, I'm pretty sure we only got about 400, a little over 400 people here is what I told him. I didn't want to even give away the actual number because who knows how many more were going to come into the door. But yeah, he was warning me that we can only have so many people in the building. I remember that. And
I mean, you think about it, including the wrestlers, we probably were pushing close to that 500.
Yeah, I mean, it was full. I mean, sometimes you'll see the wide shots and you'll see all the people there. It's hard. Again, this is one of those, it could have been lit better for the video.
Yep.
It was lit great in person. Man, I wish you could see this live. It was lit perfectly.
This would make a good t-shirt shop.
What's that?
You know how we did the t-shirt for the May 9th show?
Yep.
This would be a good one to do a t-shirt for.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big night. I have some ideas. You remember that panoramic shot I got of all the people there that I did?
Yep.
Kind of incorporate that into a t-shirt for this. I got some ideas. But yeah, this. So this, I'm gonna say this show. So that's how it was going down, and I was gonna say on that with all those people, when the fire marshal getting on my, or not the fire marshal, but the guy who runs the armory telling me to watch the capacity limit. Oh, we did our own concessions. So between the ticket sales, these program guides that I did up here and sold these for 75 cents a program guide, and then all the concessions, we had close to $2,000 when this was all said and done in our bank account.
Yep.
Think about that. 16-year-old kids in this, in our own thing, and we had $6,000. Or $2,000 in there. That was a lot of money. Let's get some comments here, guys, that are missing, not paying attention. Louis Calogero says, did you encourage other kids to make costumes? Some of them look like they came from school right to the wrestling ring. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of those things I wish we would have paid more attention to, Dave,
is character development.
Character development and gimmicks. We got better with this in '87. When we started getting wrestling boots and everything and using elbow pads and stuff, knee pads. But yeah, you're right. That's one thing we could have been a little bit better with, I think, is having them. That it's one of those things that's 2020 hindsight's perfect vision's 2020 in hindsight. Yeah, I wish we would have paid more attention to that.
Yep.
Gizmo also says, Terry, if you are still out there, you look like one of the most entertaining wrestlers I have seen on this show. Yeah, Terry was. He was really flexible and good. I mean, see how Chris covered his mouth? that was not the finish. They were not supposed to win. It was supposed to be the Destroyers winning. And Chris knew he messed up. That's why he covered his mouth. Like, oops, I screwed up. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's, and people are going to ask me, did you get mad at him in the back? Nah, it was a mistake. We move on. But yeah, he did make a mistake. I think, if anything, Chris came up to me and says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. That's, Chris was very apologetic back in those days.
Might be a better question, Mr.
If he
X.
did something like that.
What do you want to know? None of your business. Yeah.
Very hostile, Mr. X. Is
That'll shut you up for a while.
Yeah, now let's tell them about what we're all gonna do. Come October 7th, we're gonna start laying down some laws. We're gonna start ripping up ring posts, and we're gonna start ripping up people. And the first people that's gonna stop is who?
The champions.
That's who it's gonna be. We're gonna rip them up. We're gonna rip their belts up.
Yes.
We're gonna rip up motors. We're gonna paint the town red, and we're gonna rip up anything that gets in our way.
Which Chad was that one?
And where's
That was Chad Rancourt, the one we just seen wrestling, Dr.
Yep.
Destruction. Yeah, it's him on the left. He played Mr. X too as well. It's Mr. Destroyer.
And if Steenerson,
Now he's the one that plays Rattlesnake Jake tonight. This
Yep.
guy right here.
I have a tag team partner that may be coming in here. He'll take care of you. Okay, and I also
Nick Dumas, another athlete. He played a lot of hockey. Hockey was his first sport,
side of the ring
his
as
first
well.
love. He still does hockey to this day.
Yep.
He's 50s.
International hockey.
Yeah.
He's challenged
So
me
he's remained in very good shape,
some
and
appointments, but which I haven't been able to make. So he's probably calling me a chicken at this point in time. But I'll show him up in the ring.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. From the word of mouth, Mr. Destroyer.
so here we got Steve again as Mr. X going against Mr. Destroyer, the guy we just seen in the interview.
Here comes Mr. Destroyer. He used
So you can kind of see in these shots when the camera pans out, you can see all the people that are there. It's just, the place was packed. Isn't it funny? We go from 50 people, Dave, to 450 people. It's quite a change. I did some things, though, that... this was the first show where I actually gave tickets to the radio station to give away for the
Oh,
morning
okay.
show. Yeah, so Cool 108, which was in Anoka at the time. They're huge now today in the Twin Cities, but back then they were kind of more regional. But they had a morning show, so I gave them like 20 to 30 tickets to give away for their morning show. I figured it's going to plug our show, right? They're going to talk about it. It's kind of funny when me, Steve, and Larry I was with went there to drop the tickets off, and the DJ was there, and they like, oh, you guys are the wrestlers? I said, yeah. And they said, do you want to come on the air with us right now? I said, yeah, we'll do that. That was great. Did a little bit of a live promo on the air I remember doing for this thing.
Yeah. Well, welcoming King Coop. He says that he's a first-time viewer.
First time. Great to see it. Found our channel through Brian Zane. Brian's great. Brian, he actually, I asked him if he would come on as a guest with us one of these shows, and he said he would. So I got to get back with Brian on that and see when we can get him. And I'd love to have Brian come on one of our shows. A lot of people think with Brian Zane, because he did that thing on our documentary, and kind of poked fun of us a little bit, like he does on his shows. And a lot of people thought, well, why would you become friends with that guy? Look, there's an old saying, and I learned this when I was 16. There's no such thing as bad publicity. He's doing a thing, spending all that time on our documentary and talking about it. There's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Exactly. Hey, it's
I
like,
get the nature of a show, so I get it.
and it's like we do for Liliac every week, They get publicity through us watching our live stream,
Yeah.
with us playing their music, and we're thankful for them letting us use their music.
Yep. And King Coop says Brian's a chill dude, real mellow. He loves pro wrestling as much as we do. Yep, absolutely. No, I become since that I have become I've remained good Facebook friends with Brian. Brian's a great guy. He did another interview with me as well. To follow up on that. So yeah, good guy, great guy actually. Nick wanted to get his stick spinning in there as he's spinning his sticks.
Oh yeah, he was into martial arts at the time too.
Yeah. I'll tell you something though. We were pumped to have this many people show up to see our show. We were, the excitement in the locker room. Dave, talk about that. What were you feeling like in the locker room back then? At 13 years old back then.
When I realized what the crowd was like out there, keep in mind, people, I had only wrestled our TV tapings, which our crowd was the boys.
Oh, that's right. This is your first Armory card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
So I was sitting back there, and when we saw how big the crowd was getting, I was just sitting there thinking, holy.
Champions of the world, the Super Ds.
Yeah, butterflies, I'm sure.
Oh.
On July 26th in the Anoka Armory.
But,
They've been defending all over the state. And
once you hit that curtain,
make their first appearance in the
or
NWF,
in our case, that door,
and they've got their guns sighted on you.
I want to know who the
all the butterflies go away.
Yeah.
You get that first lockup in there, first contact, you're good.
Yeah, so we're building up the Super Ds against the Blade Runners.
The Super Ds.
And there was some real heat with these two teams, Dave.
Prepare for.
I think it was that old Anoka Coon Rapids rivalry type thing.
Well, not only that, but if you look at it, both teams, their real names were Todd and Troy.
Yeah, it was Todd and Troy.
They are the lightweight tag team champions of the Super Ds.
So, we were building up this match. Blade Runners against the Super Ds. We had some great TV tapings with them, where we had some legitimate heat, where we thought we had to separate them at one point.
Yep.
The Blade Runners, ladies and gentlemen.
So now the Blade Runners come in for their first interview, and we're just trying to build up the tension a little bit. But what happened with this match was. Well, you're going to see. I'll let you guys see what happens here when we get to the match, and then I'll explain why this happened.
But I know, I just heard.
They don't seem to be too afraid.
Of these two, the guy on the right, Todd Sufka,
Yeah.
he had a lot of potential, that kid did, if he would have stuck with it.
The Blade Runners, ladies and gentlemen, making their first appearance in the NWF. Coming into the ring first.
So you can see, here's some of those highlights of when these guys had matches on our TV taping. And if you watch some of these highlights here, you can see, I think we show some of the, somehow they kind of got into it with each other a little bit to watch. But yeah. Yeah, like that was a forceful DDT right there. See, as these matches went on, is where the heat really started picking up with these guys.
Sufka is not really realizing that it's supposed to be a work.
Right. Yeah. Look, the Super Ds were 10 years old at the time.
Yep.
So were these guys. I mean, you got 10-year-olds trying to work with 10-year-olds, and these don't realize how professional wrestling works yet, quite, right?
Exactly.
So you get a little bit of that, just friendly rivalry going. But they're like, look at the feet on the ropes. I mean, they're working it, they're learning. They're learning. But yeah, so I'll tell you what happens. We'll kind of watch this match start out, and you'll see what happens, and I'll explain why that happened. So Jason said the Super Ds were injured in Madison, Wisconsin over the weekend. So now he's just going to he's introducing the challengers, the Blade Runners.
And what these two didn't realize is there was another tag team called the Blade Runners at that point.
Right. Well, the Blade, yeah. Yep. So Jason said there'll be a replacement team announced shortly. And the Super D's music comes on. And then the Super D's come out. Wow, they're so popular with their crowds. They always got the biggest applause of the night. So ref Ryan's explaining to the ref that they can't wrestle because they're injured. So in the NWF, the way it works is if you can't defend the title, you're stripped. That was our rule. So, at least our kayfabe rule. So that's what we do. We build up this angle to strip the Super Ds. And that's what he's going to announce. And now what we have in here is a new tag team to replace them in masks. And can you guess who this is? So Jason announces them as Block and Terry. We call them the Oriental Express, but Block and Terry is basically Terry Block and Terry Costnapple in masks.
Yep.
And these guys all know each other. These are all these kids are in the same neighborhood, so they're not afraid to play rough.
Well, Todd and Troy lived down the hall from me in the apartment complex.
Yeah.
Terry Block lived like a block over from where I lived. So yeah, we were all.
But yeah, I mean, what I mean though is like these guys, they'll do high suplexes, they'll do body slams. They're very, very comfortable working with each other, and they'll play rough with each other. You know, sometimes when you get kids that don't know each other, they're a little more, cautious with each other. Reserved, yeah, that's the word. But these guys definitely were. We're gonna play rough. Now I was gonna tell you. So that was all a kayfabe angle right there. The Super Ds were not hurt. They were not injured. What the reality of it was this. Remember how I told you the Super Ds, Todd and Troy Dazowski, the ones that got stripped, went on to become professional soccer players?
They had a soccer camp that they had to go to.
Well, at this time, yeah, they had a soccer camp to go to. They went on to become professional soccer players. Think about that. But anyways, they had a soccer camp, and their mom was like, I don't want to risk you two getting hurt before this camp. We put a lot of money to have you go to this soccer camp, so I don't want you guys getting hurt. So you can be there, but you can't wrestle. So I get this news at probably a couple weeks to go, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. This is a big match. So I said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to strip you the titles to build up the angle for the next card to have the actual rematch. And that's why we did that. So the Super Ds were stripped, but that's only going to be a match in the future with the Blade Runners. That was the plan. Only to build it up more. So that's what we did. This is a non-title match at this point because this match wasn't supposed to be a title match. This is just a replacement match now.
Yep.
You can see they're playing rough, Dave. They are playing rough.
Oh yeah, they're stiffing each other a little bit.
Oh yeah. I almost did a 360 on that clothesline. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I got this in there. Terry Costnapple, he's still here. He was saying, yep, I'm still here, Crossen and Dixie. So he's watching. And I would think Terry'd be watching because he was on this show, not only in that other match, but this match as well.
Exactly.
And just so you know, who's who, the one with the dark sweatpants and the one in the ring now in the mask, that's Terry Costnapple. And Terry Block will be the other masked wrestler that just has the shorts only. And they're pretty good. You know, I'm listening. I can you listen to the crowd and stuff, and you hear what, like, all the littler kids are really into these matches. You know, the adults are probably, you know, they're entertained, but the little kids really got into seeing the other kids in the ring. That was a thing for those.
And that's what was fun. I mean, after the match,
Yeah.
you know, having little kids come up to you and asking for your autograph, and
Yeah, to you, you're big time to them.
oh yeah,
I remember that on the first Armory card when they all wanted my autograph after the match, and I didn't expect that. And that's when it really set in with me. Like, you know, they look up to you as a role model at that age. You know.
yep, and that's why we when we were on Armory property or anywhere where the fans could see us for a show, we tried to behave ourselves.
So King Coop is asking, I keep picking the wrong thing. He says, also, what was their mindset going into this match? His first part of the question was, get it up here. He says, so who were the Blade Runners feuding with at the time? Well, they were feuding with the Super Ds.
Yep.
So, and the Blade Runners were expecting to wrestle the Super Ds. I don't even remember how we were going to have that finish go. But anyways, the Blade Runners knew. I mean, everybody knew in the back what was going to happen. So, you know, they knew going out how this was going to go down. You know, how we were going to, you know, strip the Super Ds and stuff. I don't know, they knew, we didn't really exactly, I think we planned it that night to have the Terrys mask up and go out there to be a fill-in tag team.
Yep. And some people may be thinking that some of these masks look familiar. Well, when you have people that have multiple masks, you tell them bring them all.
Yeah. I think, though, Terry, these masks these guys are wearing, they made them masks, actually. They made them.
What's going through the Blade Runner's mind right now must be.
But, you know, we talk about Terry Costnapple quite a bit. Let's not forget about Terry Block. Terry Block was, first of all, he's in the NWF Hall of Fame that we had, you know, our Hall of Recognition, as I like to say. But Terry was, gosh, if there was ever somebody that never, ever complained about a finish. Like we said, Terry, we need you to get pinned here in this match coming up. You're gonna pin, you know, lose by pinfall, whatever. So, okay. Never argued the finish. Did whatever you asked him to. And because of that, he got the respect of a lot of guys, including Terry Costnapple.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a reason why you have 4 invaders. They all looked up to Terry. You know, Invader 1. So, you know, he was pretty influential. Real nice kid off camera. Super nice.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, like I said, you know, he lived a block over. He's the one that actually brought me into the NWF.
Yeah. Yeah, Terry was, in those days, Terry Block was one of these die-hard wrestling fans like all of us. Just watched it every week, you know. Back then, all of us on the show, we were into watching wrestling every week. You did, right?
Oh, yeah. 1986, I was watching World Class. I was watching AWA. I was watching UWF. WWF, NWA.
We'd catch all that other stuff on the UHF channels.
Yep.
You know, eventually we get cable TV and we get more. You can go ahead and put that in, Dave, if you want that comment. I keep clicking the wrong screen.
All right.
So, yeah,
well, you're welcome, Terry. We're going to have you on soon. We've talked about having you on for a while.
And you know why I want Terry on? He's got a better memory than I do on some of this stuff. He remembers things that I don't. So I'd love to talk to him about it when we have him on. You know. Yeah, Terry's got a sharp memory for this stuff. You know, it was sad about the only thing. My only regret with Kosnapel, Terry, is that he got shortchanged on the TV tapings. He didn't get to be a part of those because we weren't doing actual TV taping matches so much in the fall of '86 because we were just doing the events, and he was only on the big events like this. And then in '87, he didn't make those tapings. I don't think he had a ride, maybe. I'm not sure. And then when Larry and Steve took the ring, then there were no tapings for about 6 months. So
Yep,
until we
that
did
kind
the
of killed
August.
out.
30 seconds.
So yeah, so he got shortchanged on the TV show. That got shortchanged to develop his character. You know. I mean, he was developing the Destroyer before this event for all those interviews that he did for those shows that we did, but no matches. You know.
May run out on us.
Block and Terry.
This is going wild.
Yeah, that little guy there, Todd Sufka, he could take quite a bit of a beating. He's a
Oh,
tough
yeah.
little kid, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. Even us screwing around in the hallways. We'd bump around in the hallways a lot.
Yeah. See the crowd booing the masked guys, Block and Terry. They're asking why they don't get the titles. That was a non-title match there, Terry. I know he's listening. Yep. Look at that clothesline. Right on the back of his head.
Oh yeah.
Or one half of the invaders at any rate. Invader number 1. Now here comes Invader number 2. You guys have.
Well, that's Terry Black. That was one of those masked
on national
wrestlers.
television last week.
We got a special plan for them guys. They ain't gonna make it out of the ring walking. They're gonna be on a stretcher.
Where is this?
Not too many words from Invader number 2. He's probably too angry for words. He's got a lot. If he can get a shot of this knee, he's got a lot to be angry for.
Yeah, Terry was a little gun shy with interviews. He kind of a wreck on the interviews. But in the ring, he was just the opposite. Just the opposite in the ring.
And here we go. We're off and running.
Yep, I'll let you take over here now, Dave. This is your match.
I figured let the Terry start.
They definitely have
A trimmed down Dixie Dave, I might add.
Dixie.
From when you first joined, you know.
Oh yeah. And Terry and I working together. Go to splash him in the corner.
Oh, now Dixie right away.
Trying to work him over a little bit.
Invaders here. I like the.
Now, I always blank. Which Chad is that out by the ring with us?
That is Dr. Destruction Chad Rancourt in the corner with
No.
Rattlesnake Jake.
with the Rattlesnake Jake, and I suppose he's there because he's trying to build up on the original match, right? It's supposed to be him and
Yep.
Ice Dragon in there, so he's now in the corner of you guys, as Chad. Ice Dragon couldn't be there for the suspension we did.
Yep.
Um,
You said you were going to get into that a little bit, but
oh, do you want me to talk about it?
if you want to, go ahead.
So yeah, like I said, they were suspended, and we needed to have a match. And I remember we had a meeting in Coon Rapids at the community center. Had everybody
Yep.
come?
Right
And I
by
was
the
mentioning-
top there.
Yeah, and I had mentioned, these Chris and Chad are suspended. Chad will be back, but we're gonna have to do something for this match. We're gonna have to change. And Dave, you came up and said, I got a suggestion. How about me and Rattlesnake Jake?
Whoever he is.
And I thought about it, and I thought,
Invaders.
Dixie, again, I don't care how good you are in the ring. I look at what the commitment is of the guy. And I'm thinking, you know what? Dave has shown up every time he was around that he could. He's always been there, and he's proven himself. Yeah, let's let him get in that ring with them, with the National Tag Team Champions.
Yep.
So I said, okay, let's do it. We needed a match. You had just come back into town, so you were available.
Yep. And to those wondering, I'd go visit my father in Florida during the summertime, and that's why
Yeah,
I was never
missed
on the
all those.
summer tapings.
Yeah, you missed all the summer shows, but
Jake working. I want to say is that Terry in the ring?
yeah, it's Terry Block. I'll tell you something. Terry took his fair share. You might have thought he suplexed the Blade Runners a lot. He just taken his fair share of suplexes back in the days. That's for sure.
He's like, nope, you're not stretching my hamstring out. So I just go for the ground and pound, and he runs for the corner. And a rematch of my very first match.
Looks like he haymakered you there, Dave.
Oh, yeah. I was seeing stars for a minute there.
Yeah, Chad's like a bull in there, man. Chad Randall. That's the other invader. Bigger guy. The bigger invader. Well, he was a football player. That's how he hurt his knee. Remember I said he had a bad knee and everything? They did the interview and stuff they were talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, that was not from wrestling. That was from football. But he couldn't keep doing the wrestling because of that knee. That's why he was, Vader won to get a new partner eventually. Later on in 1987. These guys were good, though. They were best friends in the neighborhood, right, Dave?
Yep.
Chad and Dave
Oh, yeah.
and Terry. So, yeah, they were close friends and good tag team.
Oh, yeah. Right before that May 9th card, we all crashed over at Terry's place.
Yeah. Terry, I said this story before. Terry Block was such a ribber back behind the camera. He's all shy and nervous when he had to do an interview, but off camera he was just a ribber. And I used to come out to there and hang out with you guys at the apartments, and you had that Target right next there. And I said, guys, I got to find Jesus Christ Superstar. I want that intro music for Superstar Spectacular '87 when we do it again. I want to use that. So we all went to. I said, let's go to Target and check the album section out, see if we can find it. And I had everybody looking for it. And Terry Block, he goes through the bin. Jesus Christ Superstar. I said, where? Just kidding. I could have wrung his neck, Dave. Yeah, he was a river.
And we got a comment from Gizmo.
Dave, that was a real shot to the head. Yeah. Yeah, like what was up with that? Did he stiff you there a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, just, he just decided to bull rush, and, the thing is, in the ring, sometimes you get heated in the heat of the moment. After the match is over, everybody's all good.
Yeah, none of this carried over. You're in front of 450 people, and you're improvising, and you want to make it look real. And sometimes you get a little rough. That's all I can say, right? A little stiff, I guess.
The one thing I will say, I was there the night the Invaders won the national tag titles. And obviously, you and I know how the story ends.
Yeah.
Terry and I in the ring.
Yeah. So everybody's saying, well, how come you're wearing socks? Like a lot, you see Terry in his socks. Well, we wanted to make it look like wrestling boots, so those tube socks with the stripes and the high up on your shins like that kind of resemble boots.
Yep.
The boot look, I guess. So that was the thinking. Some of the guys still wearing just socks, though. Like Terry's just in socks. Here's an interesting question from King Coop. What was the backstage atmosphere like back then, Dave? What do you
Oh,
remember?
backstage, we were all cool with each other. I mean, all of us were friends, and I mean, even if you weren't close friends with somebody, everybody was still open to communication with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, my memories of the backstage was we were we were damn excited for this big crowd.
Oh yeah,
So everybody that hadn't wrestled yet, there was some butterflies and nervousness going on, just because you know some of these guys hadn't been in front of this many people before. Now some of us had, from May 9th for the
yep,
first one we did, but those that hadn't been in front of this big crowd, yeah, there's definitely some nervousness and excitement. It's a weird feeling, Dave. You're excited, but you're worried at the same time.
exactly. You know, you
So
and the behind the scenes deal. We're all best way to describe it is we're all brothers behind the scene. You
yeah,
may not always get along, but
yeah. Sometimes there is conflicts with kids. Like that's why we have these suspensions that we do. They weren't kayfabe suspensions. They were suspensions. I used them, and the reason I use suspensions
oh,
like that for real. Oh yeah, let's talk about your match first.
yep, here we
Oh, so
are,
there was that slam, Dave.
the
Remember the
infamous
ribs?
slam.
Yeah, you awkward slam on Terry, and you can tell Terry's hurting there. His ribs got bruised a little bit from that. And so
Yeah,
yeah, so Dixie Dave and Rattlesnake Jake, and notice they're working over the knee. Chad needed a reason to be off the show for a while because he had to let his knee heal up.
exactly. So we put him out of his misery.
So Rattlesnake Jake and Dixie Dave win the belts. So what a birthday present! This was actually Dave's birthday, you guys. This happened on his birthday.
Yep.
Not planned, but it just happened to fall on your birthday. Pretty nice birthday present.
And to this day, I still have my belt.
Yeah. And you guys getting the heat? They're booing you.
Oh yeah. Hey, gotta leave with the heel heat.
There's that hit, Dave.
Oh yeah.
Got you right in the head there. Very nice double suplex. And he comes off the top rope.
But you were talking about our suspensions that we did.
Yeah,
When
so
kids got out of line.
I was just saying, this looks like we're going to go to the Kid Kelsey and Slick Steenerson no street clothes match coming up here. We're just kind of building. Now notice this, Steenerson goes out to shake his hand and then he attacks Kelsey. This is the build-up for this street clothes match for Kelsey. They basically triple team Kelsey here on the TV show. Looked like they broke his arm. That was the whole plan. It's all an angle. And
No, what was that? Pretty boy.
Pretty Boy,
What?
Bulldog the Butcher, and Slick Steenerson, yeah.
Okay.
But Steenerson was the one that started it with pretending to shake his hand and then sneak attack.
What are they going to do to him? Oh, and they split him apart. They split him
The
apart.
wishbone.
Now here comes Crusher crossing a world champion.
Crusher Cross and come in.
It did take Crusher a little bit of time to get in there.
Yeah.
But they're working on that arm. Butchers, right now here come the Barbarians.
Barbarians coming in, all mayhem breaking loose here on the TV taping.
Will be the man who'll be wrestling Kid USA Kelsey for the national championship by the name of Slick Steenerson. Kelsey coming back after having a broken arm, and he
Is this the infamous Kelsey Smelcy?
Yeah.
Kelsey won the belt. Steenerson came in, offered his hand, and
I think so.
Kelsey took it, and then a vicious sneak attack, something like that from Slick Steenerson. I couldn't believe it. None of the fans at ringside could believe it, and he demanded to get at you for the national championship.
Kelsey Schmelcy, that wimp don't know how to wrestle if he put a book in front of his face. I mean, how did Pretty Boy Taylor lose the belt?
Now let's talk about people like Steenerson and Campa, who I was in Florida once.
Here comes Steenerson and another vicious sneak attack.
What in the world is going on here? Just an all-out brawl.
I was wondering one thing that I caught The fans
What was
probably
that?
didn't catch it. Why did Kelsey have the world title over her shoulder?
Well, see, this is doctored up for the DVD. That interview actually took place a lot earlier,
Oh, okay.
so we just needed to show Steenerson attacking Kelsey to build up for the match. Actually, the time frame wasn't quite right though. But what were you going to say? What did you want me to cover before all this?
Oh, we were talking about, how you use suspension as ways of punishing, and our suspensions
Yeah,
were legit suspensions.
because Dave, everybody wanted to be on the show at this point in time with all these armory cards and stuff. So I knew that if I really suspended you, that would hurt. You
Yeah.
would, So I wanted to make sure that set a precedence that there are going to be rules and you're going to have to follow them off camera, and you can't get into it with other kids. And unfortunately, Chris Downs at that age got into it with other kids. And so I had to do the suspension. Chris is not like that today. I'm still friends with Chris Downs to this day. He's
Oh, yeah.
he's growing up like all of us, right? And
Owns his
he's
own
growing out of that.
business, and
Yeah, he's a very nice guy, and he's not like that like he was. But back then, he was a little hot fuse, and so I would use those suspensions because I knew that they would shapen up. Then follow the rules, right? So yeah, so this is a street clothes match. So they're dressed in street clothes, and can use any kind of foreign object they want. Steenerson has a bag of salt that he uses to throw in your face and stuff. He has all sorts of stuff. It's
all
not really
kinds of
salt.
gimmicks.
We use flour because salt would kill you. I mean, sting, right? So we use flour. Flour is bad enough. Troy in that timber fall, man, nobody could do it like him. He could really sell falling.
And Troy loved the bone.
He did. And I was going to say, he was a kind of a hefty kid, right?
Yeah.
I a polite way to say big bone kid, right? And
both Troy and I were the bigger of the kids.
Yep. But Troy, though, he could move like a cat in that ring. He had cat-like reflexes. He could do a drop kick, for a kid his size. Troy was good. Next to Steve Engstrom, I would say Troy was one of my better matches, that I worked with.
Oh, yeah. Be it the no slam, no belt, be it the Georges and Fridley.
Yeah, we had several matches with Eddie Sharkey there. Troy and I were really tight back then. We hung out all the time. Even after the show was over, Troy and I hung out quite a bit. And we were real good friends back in those days. I'm not, once my original Facebook account got hacked into, I lost touch with a lot of these guys. And so Troy was one of them. I'm just trying to get in touch with them again. It's hard to get in touch with people, though, when you lose your Facebook account.
Well, I mean, as we know, I've gone directly to his home to try and make contact with him, and
yeah,
I left him a note. Ball's in his court.
One of these days we'll try to get a hold of him again, I suppose, and reach out to him. Troy, I'll say this. Troy had a lot of medical issues he's been dealing with in the last 20 years. I know that. So it's not been an easy life for him, medically speaking. But he's still in good spirits and everything, last time I had talked to him. Let's see. Troy and I went on to work with Eddie Sharkey in the PWA, Pro Wrestling America.
Yep.
And Troy, in my opinion, could have went a lot further with this.
Oh, yeah.
And people say, well, what about me? Well, I wasn't big enough. This isn't back in the days. You got to remember, this is in the time period where if you weren't over 220 pounds, you weren't viable.
Exactly.
Troy was 250 pounds, in these days. He was big enough, and he was good enough. And The only thing that kept Troy from going further is he met his wife now, Angie. Head
Yep.
over heels, and his whole direction shifted. His priorities shifted, right? Yeah.
And you know, back at that point in time, I couldn't understand what he was talking about and why he was making the choices that he made, but I can understand it now.
Troy was really good in the ring. I mean, just as good as Steve as far as bumping. And yeah,
The
no,
only thing that I could have seen holding Troy back was he wasn't a talker.
yeah, he would need to work
On the
on his
stick.
mics a bit. But Dave, there's a lot of guys that can't. Look at Goldberg when he first came in, right?
Yep.
You never even heard a word from him because he couldn't talk.
Kelsey has a perfect chance to pin him. No, pin him. History. Kelsey could keep his belt. The count of 2. What does Mr. Macho keep on holding this jacket for?
These are the guys that have the best potential, and this is the ones that, because if you can put your opponent over, and you each can do that, you have one heck of a match, right? A really good match.
Exactly.
So, I talk about Troy a lot, and I don't talk about Matt Kelsey, and I don't want to cut him short. But Matt was, Matt might have not have been as polished in the ring as some of us, as far as bumping.
Right.
But he was very good at, again, Matt was very good offensively and knew the chemistry of a match. But Matt's real talents was his interviews. Unlike Troy, Matt could talk.
Exactly.
And yeah, his interviews were some of the best, especially when he went heel. Matt had some really good heel interviews. Kelsey had some good babyface interviews. But
We've always said Kelsey should have been a heel from the jump.
yeah, he was too much of a Four Horsemen fan, too much of a Ric Flair fan, and it came out in all of his characters.
Talking about wrestling. First of all, he is a dumb wrestler. He don't know how to wrestle.
But yeah, Troy, you can put Troy in the ring with anybody, and the match is going to be pretty good because Troy can carry the match. I'm not cutting Kelsey short saying that. I'm just saying in general, Troy was really good like that.
Well,
I mean,
just to put Troy over a little bit, okay? Just to put Troy over a little bit, Troy is the only wrestler from the NWF who has wrestled a WWE Hall of Famer.
that's correct. People don't realize that, but yeah, Slick Steenerson had a match with a current WWE Hall of Famer in Sean Waltman.
Yep.
Who in those days went by the 1-2-3 Kid, or no, the Lightning Kid. He was the Lightning Kid then.
He was the Lightning Kid back then.
Yep.
They played it off that you couldn't show up for your match, and they pulled him out of the crowd.
Is that how they did it?
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I know because when Waltman was there at the PWA, he was working events opposite of me. So when I would come in, he was off, and when I was off, he would be in. So we were alternating. I know that I was supposed to wrestle Sean Waltman. PWA did a Wrestle for Shelter.
Yep.
And the guy doing it at the time, Ray Webby, the late Ray Webby, great guy, by the way. For those who don't know who he was a really, really, really nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
And
Little Debbie Ray Webby.
Yep. Ray Webby, and he said, he asked me, approached me, said, "Hey, I wanna book you and Sean Waltman for Wrestle for Shelter. Would you be interested? Think you could do it?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all for it." So it was going to be me and the 1-2-3 Kid, or very similar styles. It would have been a hell of a match,
Oh,
but it didn't happen. It did not happen because me and Eddie Sharkey kind of got into it off the side, and Eddie wasn't happy that I wasn't making all the shows, and I was in Wisconsin, and so it just I felt best that it's just we not go any further with it at that point. That's when I stopped wrestling. Yeah, that's
yep,
kind of how
and
that
not
went.
long after that, that's when Troy met his wife, and that was it.
Well, back to Waltman though. So when they had this match, this is what I remember Troy telling me about it. Uh, Eddie said, "Yeah, well, you're gonna put Sean over. You're gonna lose." And Troy, good for Troy. Troy stood up for himself. He said, "No, Eddie, that's bullshit." He told Eddie this. He goes, "I've been here and I've been paying my dues for 6 months. He just got here." He said, "I'm not gonna just put him over. It's gonna kill my character." And Eddie seen it that way, and so Eddie said, "All right, fine, let's do it. Get disqualified then." So then Troy gets disqualified. He throws him over the top rope.
Yep.
So good for Troy standing up for himself. I wasn't there that night. You were there. You were in the locker room. You remember all this.
Yep. Well, I wasn't in the locker room for that part, but
Oh, you didn't see it. You're right there on that one.
yeah.
I remember Troy telling me though.
I do not believe it.
So initially they said that Troy won the belt. Now the referee reversed it.
Well, because of the aftermatch attack on Kelsey.
I think what we did is because Macho held his legs on the ropes for the pinfall, so that was an interference. Interference was not allowed in this match. You couldn't interfere for the pin or the submission, and that's what they did. That's why we reversed it.
The person I am going after is Crossen. He just makes me sick.
Bulldog the Butcher playing Jesse Ventura at the commentating booth there.
Yep.
Being the heel commentator.
The Fallsbury Flop.
Yeah, Troy's really good at selling the moves.
Weighing in at 145 pounds, Mr. Macho.
Oh yes, that's right. So I worked a match with Mr. Macho tonight. Crusher Crossen versus Mr. Macho.
By Slick Steenerson.
And Macho was the U.S. champion at the time.
123 pounds, and he is the world's heavyweight champion, Crusher Crossen. And he attacks him before
My self-opinion is that the Crusher has no chance against
I forgot that Macho used that song as his ring music.
Yeah, he did.
I'm sure it brought a little smile to my girlfriend's face while she's watching the show.
Yeah. She liked that song?
She's a diehard Kiss fan.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just on one of our TV tapings. We're just, again, building up our rivalry for the match for this card. So we had a match on the TV taping to kind of build it up. And you see... It's so nice to have that professional ring to work in, I gotta tell you.
Oh, yeah.
That we had at this point in time. So I'm trying to help Macho up. I'm trying to sell this, and then he keeps attacking me as a heel should.
I had a feeling that happened. That's okay, because that's one person I've been wanting to
I
get.
love that belt,
He
Dave.
signed the papers.
Such a great,
Signed and
iconic
sealed.
belt for our show.
He had enough time.
I know what everybody's wondering. What is this big surprise that I've got? You're all wondering, right? Well, I'll tell you this.
In the talk of the town.
Yes, it has, hasn't it? Yeah. Well,
Macho and his
I've been
character.
talking with Mr. X. I have hired his services. He is going to teach me every dirty tactic in the book. And pretty soon, I shall have the national heavyweight belt. And then I'll have the world heavyweight belt.
Very confident. I know what he's going to be pulling. I know he's going to have this. This is just in my corner. I never said I was going to use a chair. I said it's going to be in my corner.
talk about bringing the chair in my corner.
We're not going to see this man. We're going to see the old Crusher Crossen used to be around years ago. He used to take this chair and hit himself in the head anyway just to see how it feels. That's exactly what I'm going to be like, and I'm going to love to see what happens.
Okay.
Crashing down on your head over 20 miles an hour when I smooth. I might even take some holes, drill some holes in there, get some air pressure, so when I swing that...
We had a comment from King Coop.
Kids think of y'all wrestling back then and having your own promotion. Well, I don't have kids and grandkids, but I know that, like, John Hoffman's got grandkids, and Leslie Johnson, the Destructors, and they tell me that their kids think it's great. You know, they look at the old pictures and videos and they laugh with their grandpa or their dad. So the kids really, they think it's cool that the kids that they had, I know that.
And my daughters thought that it was cool.
Yeah.
That's good, you know.
Yeah, your daughters always tune in, even on these shows.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I'm sure. You know, think of being a kid at this time. Imagine this, people watching. Put yourself back to a teenager, young kid, and you come across watching this show on cable. What is your initial thought? You want to be on it, right? You want to be a part of this. You know? Yeah, I mean, it's like, as a kid, you're thinking, God, how do I join? And I would have, when we had the NWF hotline and I was sending the tapes around to all the major states, you know, like we went to 22 different states, major cities. And sometimes on the hotline, I'd get calls from New York, from Dallas, from these areas that were airing. Kids saying, hey, I got a call on the hotline, I want to show up for the next show. And I'd have to explain to them, we're in Minnesota, and you're welcome to, but you're going to have to somehow fly to Minnesota. They had no idea that we were in Minnesota. They thought it was something in their local market, you know?
And looking at Kelsey's lighting every minute of it, too. I can't stand it. Kid makes me want
That's when I realized we can't keep the hotline on the show if we're going to go national like this, because I can't keep getting calls like that.
I think Crusher's loading his knee
pads.
You know, it should have been obvious, though, with the area code that we had at the time.
Yeah, I mean, kids don't know. You know, kids, when you get kids calling, they don't know what the deal is. Not everybody knows the area codes that well. Yeah, King Coop makes a pretty good point here. Public access is pretty big, so instantly thousands of people were watching you. Yeah, because back then, there wasn't satellite television. There wasn't the internet and YouTube and streaming. There wasn't DVRs and stuff. So you only had maybe 40 or 50 channels on your system. And the way we did it back then is you channel surfed. It's called channel surfing. Clicking through the channels to see what you want to watch. So you'd click on a channel. Yeah, click. And then if they come across you when you're on, they're like, hey, this is interesting. And that's how we gained our audience, is people channel surfing. You know? Initially.
Exactly.
So people ask this, how the hell did we pull off 450 people coming to watch us? Where did we get that kind of draw? And I always have to remind everybody, you got to realize we are 2 years in with a weekly television show in the market promoting our league. So we had 2 years worth of building up a fan base, really.
Exactly.
And that's why we had the draw we did in Anoka, because Anoka was our base.
And we marketed the show. We were able to market the show.
Yeah. It was interesting, you know, Gizmo asked a few weeks ago, or Sports Talk, I don't know which one it was, what it was like for us out in public, you know. Did we get recognized? I think it was a show I wasn't on. You and Jamie were on that one. And you guys said, now, you know, as cool as it would be to be recognized, nobody really did for me. That's what Jamie said. And I can see that, because he wasn't as much on the show as much as I was. I had been on every show. At school, all my friends that I knew before the show treated me no different. Just because I was on the show, I got treated the same.
Yep.
But when I went to the mall, like at Northtown, and other kids recognized me but didn't know me, I always knew. You know how it is when you're being stared at, right? If you
Yep.
got some kids staring at you, you know that they recognize you. I always just try to play it nonchalant. I never went out of my character. I just, stuck to my business, right? But I could tell by the way people were staring at me. You know when somebody recognizes you. Back in the day.
Yep. They recognized you, but they were being too shy
to say anything or come up and ask.
Yep.
Although I did have some people do that, but more so it was the other way around. They just would kind of stare and maybe talk amongst themselves, or hey, that's the whatever. Yeah, a lot of that. So Mike Whaley is Mr. Macho. For me, working with Mike in the ring, Mike was a kind of stiff. He was a little. I don't want to say stiff. That's not the right word. He was stiff in that he was not flexible. He wasn't as flexible as like Steve or Troy.
Right.
Wasn't as smooth. But we had a great chemistry in the ring, and the feud was there. The rivalry was there. But we were not gelling together really well, especially in this match.
And you got to have that gel.
That is the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
Crossen is no good cheating. Crossen was too stupid to look at us when he got nailed by Mr. Macho.
Now you see, you got Dr. Destruction and Bulldog the Butcher heel commentating right now in this match, and they're just ripping me apart, as they should. They're the heels.
Yep.
So yeah, King Kubis commented here again. He said it's interesting, and yeah, because in ways all of you were like local celebrities, so they didn't really want to approach you, but they thought it was cool too. Yeah, especially other kids. Now, not every kid felt that way though. I know there were kids that thought we were dorks, thought we were stupid, but these are the same kids that don't like professional wrestling either. So what I found is it's the kids that don't really like professional wrestling are the ones that think what you're doing is ridiculous.
Exactly.
But the ones that like professional wrestling were also fans of what we did. Does that make sense? So, and most kids wanted to be a part of it, like especially if they got to know you. Like a lot of the kids that we got on the show were friends of friends, right?
Exactly.
So,
King Coop had another comment that he made right after that last one.
Y'all should do a reunion show one day. Yeah, we came close to doing a reunion show back during when we made the documentary, The Untold Story. We were going to do an event with a local indie promotion, so we'd have independent wrestlers on the card as well as some of our matches. We'd bring back some of our matches and do actual matches again, back when we still could in those days.
But now the majority of us are upper 40s, lower 50s, and
yeah, I'm pretty sure the Super Ds would still get in the ring. There's guys who could do it, but I know I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't know if I could anymore.
The extent of me wanting to wrestle anymore is I'd like to get in the ring again and run the ropes again.
Yeah. Or just to show you can take a bump still. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Doing a flat back bump?
A few years ago, my nephew, Zach, he was playing for St. Cloud State at the time in football. He was a receiver. He was good friends with the quarterback at the time. His quarterback for the team at the time was he was a big guy. He's like 6'6", tall guy. And they were giving me shit saying, you can't still do that drop kick anymore. I said, I can still do the drop kick. And I was kind of getting into my nephew, right? He's like, no, you can't do. They're like, you can't do that drop kick anymore. I said, all right, we're gonna do the drop kick. I'm gonna show you how it's done. And I had an air mattress laid out on the floor. That's where I was gonna sleep that night. I was at my sister's.
Yeah.
And I said, Q, stand right there, but don't move, because if you move, you're gonna hurt me. I'm not gonna hurt you, but I'm gonna tap you right here in the chest, right? And so I got up. I did that drop kick. I hit him in the chest. He's a big guy. He tried to get up high. And then when I landed, Dave, I landed on an air mattress, and the whole damn thing bottomed out, and I hit the floor, and I think something fell off the mantle of the fireplace. I thought I was going to break my hip landing on a hard floor. Wasn't expecting that. Point is, I still did the drop kick. That was about 10 years ago.
Now, could you still do it today?
would hurt like hell, but I probably would. I could do it. It's just not going to be a painful landing, or it's going to be a comfortable landing.
Macho's running. Here comes Crusher.
Yeah, it's, professional wrestling is like riding a bike. You don't forget it.
No.
No matter how long you've been away from it.
I think he's gonna get nailed with the
I mean, it may take a little bit just to get back into ring shape.
Right, and you might be rusty. They call it ring rust.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Macho and I, it was a big match. It was a title, title versus title match. His U.S. title was up on the line, and so wasn't my world title. Which those belts, by the way, behind me, that one right back there, that's the U.S. title. That was Macho's belt.
The one right here.
Yeah, and then that world title is it's up there in the very top. Kind of covered up by the, well, maybe it isn't covered up on the live stream, but.
What did he do? 5 minutes remaining in this match. Oh no.
Yeah, I used to practice the drop kick, Dave, in Eddie Sharkey's gym when he was training guys. Troy and I would work out there too, back when we were getting ready for his matches with the PWA.
Yep.
And he had those wrestling mat pads, and he had punching bags, those big, tall punching bags. And I would have Troy hold one so I could practice my drop kick on those.
Oh,
I would
okay.
just mark a spot, and that's right. That's where I used to practice the drop kick. I just do a standing one,
Obviously, that pile driver must have took much off.
People ask, like, what was it like at Eddie Sharkey's camp, this wrestling camp? Well, the way this camp worked is he would sit in a chair, or a bunch of chairs, whatever. The guys would be out working, bumps, and it was just bump memory, kind of like repetitive bumping for memory retainment. So if it was hip lock takedown day, that's all they were doing was hip lock takedowns, hundreds for the whole day. The next day it might be, a snap mare or veal, whatever, elbow drops. But they would work it, and then Eddie would watch, and he would point things out as need be. Now you got to work on it this, or got to work on that. Sometimes he'd get up and get involved. Mainly he had guys doing that for him, and Eddie would just kind of supervise, I guess you could say. That's how he did it.
But, in a way that's smart to do. Get the body calloused up for it.
Right. He never really did a whole... The way he trained a match was they would do their shows, and they would get put into the ring, just like we would. We'd throw you in the ring.
Yep.
But you had now learned all the spots, and then you'd have to put it together in the match in front of people. It's kind of how Eddie's training went.
Here, give me the headband, ref. All right, I'm honored to have his headband. All right. Into the ropes.
Yeah, other people say other thing. If you listen to the Road Warriors, they always say, "Why he didn't teach us anything?" He did. I mean, he taught them the fundamental bumping. He didn't teach. What I think they meant, what Animal meant in that interview is, he didn't teach them how to do a match,
Right.
start to finish. That's what they learned when they went down south.
When you go to Eddie's camp, you learn each and every individual move.
Yeah, you learn the bumping, basically.
You have to figure it out how to put it all together.
I remember we were already doing armory cards before I met Eddie Sharkey. So
Yep.
I met Eddie Sharkey after our first armory card. And that's why Eddie was so enthusiastic, because he had heard we had 350 people at the first armory card, and he wanted a chunk of that change. Yeah, so... But Eddie was super nice, man. I couldn't have been,
Oh, yeah.
Very open arms with us. Very nice guy. And I used to spend hours with him on the phone, talking to him as well, over the course of time. And I knew him talking about all sorts of things in the business. Just business chemistry in the wrestling. Yeah, if you can't take the bumps and stuff, this isn't for you. You got to be able to take the bumps in the ring, and it's physical. You know, it's
You
very
have,
physical.
you know, there's one thing, you know, you see a lot of these big buff guys come into wrestling and they're in shape, but
Yep.
they're not in ring shape. There's a
Not
big
ring shape.
difference. There is a
Or they
big
don't
difference
know.
between the two.
They might have the look, but they can't bump. They have that too.
Well, that's what I mean
That
by
problem.
ring shape.
Well, no, I would like with ring shape too, though. They gas out. They just can't
Yep.
go the distance. You know, I get that. You know, that's another problem. Like that
I
match
mean,
Steve and I had last Armory card. That was a Broadway. That was a lot of work. Not everybody can do that, let alone a regular match.
you know, it's like I've mentioned before. I've seen an interview where Kurt Angle admitted, after all his years wrestling Olympic, his first professional match, he was blown up. He was gassed out.
This is the first time I went away from the singlet look, Davis. Oddly enough, I'm wearing that blue top instead. They usually have that blue singlet, look.
Yep.
Macho getting it. He had some heat here. I know that. Like this wasn't planned. A little bit of heat with me and Mike in this one. He got mad because I threw a water in his face during the match. He told me afterwards. Yeah, a little bit of heat with us there, but we were fine the next day, guys. It's not like it carried over with us. Mike was a real good friend back then.
You know, you get back to the locker room, you talk things out, and
yeah, I threw water in his face, and he didn't like it, and that wasn't planned. So sometimes you do things and it just goes south.
the Barbarians and the Rock and Roll. I believe that's Thandar.
Yes. Yep, Thandar and Mike Bauer, and it should have been Chris Barger. It should have been the Rock and Roll Express, but we got Brian Peterson, Pile Driver Peterson, showing up, making a return. Those who watch our shows know that he was back in the Group W days and the garage shows. Well, he's back here, but you can see watching him that he's not as polished as the rest of us because he was in a different era of the show, Dave. Where
Exactly.
the wrestling wasn't as developed. So he's just not quite as polished as the rest of us are. Not that we were, but we were more polished than Brian was at this point. And you can tell when you watch this match. Brian's the guy in the white, all white, blonde hair.
Yep.
But anyways, Chris Barger didn't want to be a part of this show because Chris was afraid that Vern Gagne was going to come down on us for using all-star wrestling in our posters. And Chris had just read an article in the paper where it says Vern Gagne goes after some small-town organization up north and because they used all-star wrestling, he sued them in court or whatever. And Chris is convinced he was going to do that to us. And Chris could not have that on his resume because Chris was thinking about colleges and stuff. So Chris just said, I'm going to have to resign right now. I can't be a part of this. I'm too worried about it. That's what he was worried about. I've told you this story before, Dave. Vern Gagne knew exactly what we were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had a contact by the name of Roy Nelson in Vern Gagne's office because I sent tapes to Vern way back when. And I wanted to talk to Vern, and I was put in touch with Roy Nelson, who was Vern's agent. And Roy always had a good relationship with me, and he said, call me anytime, we'll talk, anything you have, and keep me up to date on what you're doing. And that's exactly what I did. Every single Armory card we did, I had a conversation with Roy Nelson. and I told them what we're doing and everything. They were well aware. Believe me when I tell you this, they were well aware we were using all-star wrestling. You see, Vern's it's like this. You know, Vern will say on camera, "Kids, don't try this at home." But at the same time, with Vern seeing what we did with all of this, with all these people coming and promoting like we were, part of Vern really admired our just
Moxie.
Yes, exactly. And so he can't admit it on TV because it goes against his philosophy, right? He can't bring us on an interview, he can't help promote us, but he will turn a blind eye to anything we're doing using his all-star wrestling and that kind of thing.
And that's what he did for 4 years.
And that's what he did. He even gave KSTP permission to use AWA footage when they did the story on us on Channel 5. So there you go. You know, Vern had to sign off on that. They couldn't just use AWA footage in our story.
Exactly.
So when they had that little news piece on us.
Okay, Sports Talk, to answer your question, the guys in the ring right now are 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, Mike Bauer and Chris Barger, they were between 17 and 18. Brian Peterson, the guy in the white there, blonde hair, he would be, let's see, he would be about 14 years old right here. And
Tim Holland was about 17, 18.
I think it's more like 16 because he did have his driver's license yet. I remember that.
And then Conan would have been 17, 18-ish.
Yeah, Conan was a year older.
I'm leaning a little more towards 18.
Yeah, because he went into the Marines the following year. Conan joined the Marines.
Yep.
You can just see Brian is still wrestling like it's Group W cable in the garage. You know, where the rest of us had progressed with this ring. That's the trouble when you bring somebody back, Dave, that hasn't gotten to evolve with this. You know?
And to me, one thing I find interesting about this match is Brian Peterson was, if I remember correctly, was part of a tag team called the Ring Warriors.
No, he wasn't part of that.
Oh, he wasn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, Brian was kind of, he was with Rob Jacob in the early days, Jackknife Jacob.
Okay.
He was with Killer Campa, those guys, Ace. But no, he filled in for Chris, though, on this. That's how we used... Brian was supposed to have a singles match earlier on in the show. I think, according to the program guide, it was going to be Brian Peterson against Dr. Death. The Dr. Death we had. But, you know, Steve in the mask. But I figured I'd put him with Steve because Steve could make the match, right? You know, Brian being not quite up to speed, Steve could carry him. That's why I did that. So then we had to put him in this one. So I knew it was going to be a little rough, but I knew that Mike could carry Brian, and he did. You know, his partner. These guys worked together real well, Mike Bauer and the Barbarians. They had great in-ring chemistry with each other. They were a good team. Good teams, I should say.
You know, I was thinking about it. Rattlesnake Jake and I never did get our World Tag Team title shot.
Yep. Yeah, he never got the shot. Now, Conan, Jerry Wellman in the ring right now, Conan, he was a lot smoother than Thandar as far as in the ring. You know, much easier to work with for me. Because I wrestled both of them. And Jerry was great. Tim was great too. They both were, for different reasons.
They both were good. It's just Tim was a little more on the stiff side.
Yeah, Tim could be stiff. But
All right.
great character, great chemistry. The tag team really worked well. The Barbarians, great team.
And an elbow.
They were the second tag team to get honored in our Hall of Fame / recognition hall. They were the second. After the Super Ds, they were the next ones to go in.
Yep.
The Barbarians.
Double whip into the ropes. What could this be? Double clothesline.
Could be it.
Yeah, Brian's just a little rusty in that ring. You can see it.
It's an example of being in shape versus being in ring shape.
Yeah, and being prepared, and really the fact that he was out of the show all this time and couldn't progress with us. You know, the rest of us, we all progressed. You know, over the course of time, got used to this ring, got used to doing the better moves. Brian's still in Group W cable mode, a little bit.
Yep. Well, and you can tell he hadn't progressed like the rest of us had, because you look at that arm wringer he did. He went backwards instead of...
Yep. And Tim, knowing this, he stiffed him a little bit on that shoulder butt because he had to. Because he knew he wanted to make sure it was sold properly. He knew Brian was being cautious, so he gave him you've seen it right there, he gave him a pretty good shoulder, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tim and I think, only wrestled twice.
Yeah.
Once in Brooklyn Park and one at the pole barn.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. As weird as it sounds, I enjoyed that pole barn match just because of the way the finish went.
Yeah, that was a good match. You know, and Tim was strong enough to be able to pull that off with you. A lot of guys wouldn't be able to get you up.
Yep.
Like a Terry Block, I don't think could have done that.
Nope, I'd only ever been body slammed by two guys.
Yeah.
Chad and Tim Holland. To my memory.
All right, take
Yeah.
off. They have Bauer in their corner right where they want him. Kick to the midsection. Another one. They're just not letting up. Bauer having enough. Finally striking
Bauer.
Conan.
You know, I understand why, but there's... The one thing I am going to tell people is there's parts of the show that are missing when you watch it on here.
Yeah, because it had to be edited a little bit to fit on the DVD.
Yep.
So there was more to the finish on this one. So, yep, it looks like...
The Rock and Roll Express won the World Tag Titles.
And the reason we had to do this was because Conan was going to go into the Marines.
Yep.
So we had to have this finish.
And I'd like to personally say, even though I haven't talked to him in decades, thank you for your service if you watch this, Jerry.
Yeah, and he also became a police officer as well afterwards. And so, yeah, I'm still in touch with Jerry. Still keep in touch with him.
But basically what you
Great
missed, folks, is after the match ended, Thandar turned on Conan and their manager, Captain Crunch.
Yeah. Yeah, look at this. We missed the whole grand entrance. Luscious Larry had this awesome entrance where he came in through the garage door with a fog machine and lights behind him. It was awesome. But the camera didn't really get a good shot of it ever. And we, again, had to edit this for the DVD, so we had to cut all that out. So this was the big match of the night that they were waiting for. You know, we build this as Luscious Larry as an outsider, a real professional wrestler coming in to take on this Pretty Boy Taylor, the adult that didn't belong with the kids kind of thing.
Yep.
And this big mouth guy who thinks he wants to be a wrestler, and so Larry's coming in to have the match. This is how we build it.
Oh, and I felt the air coming from under the ring on that one.
Who are you calling? Look,
So here's the thing, Larry, super green here, folks. Very green. I mean, we had very little time to work with him. He's one of these guys, Dave, that have the look, but does not have that in-ring, you know.
He doesn't
He's not
have the it
polished.
factor.
Yeah, not yet. You know, and I don't know if he ever did. But he was over at this time in our league because of the way that I billed him and promoted him for 2 months in our show. You know, when Larry came in, he's like, how about I do a match with Steve on one of the TV tapes? I said, no. He says, why not? I said, you remember when they bring Andre the Giant into the territory here in the AWA, and we never got to see him? We just seen the picture of him, or the poster or whatever, or an interview, but we never got to see him in a match. You had to see Andre. You had to go to the show. I want to do the same thing with you. They're gonna see Luscious Larry take on Pretty Boy Taylor. They got to be there. The only thing they're gonna see you is posing for interviews, and that's it. That's how we did it.
Exactly.
So, you know, it was promoting him and made him, you know, where he was over for us. But this all goes to Luscious Larry's head. And after a few months of this, Larry thinks he can do this himself. And he doesn't need me. And that's when shit went south, to put it mildly. Steve could work the crowd better than any of them. Yeah. But yeah, Larry kind of went to his head, thought he could do it all. Well, you know what happens there, Dave.
Oh yeah.
How that worked out.
I wonder if they knew at this point that they were going to pull that.
Well, I'm sure them thoughts were definitely circulating in the back of Larry's mind. It was Larry that was the one that instigated all that. It was his idea.
Yeah.
He was the one that wanted to do this. Steve just went along with it. But, you know, Steve made a decision back then that affected his and I friendship for many, many years. Because leading up to this, I was, you know, for the 2 years I knew Steve leading up to all that, Steve was like a brother to me. And when he pulled that, it was like, you know, he talk about burning your bridges. He burned his bridge there.
And if you've read the book or seen the documentary, you know for a long time there was heat from Crusher with Steve.
Yeah. You know, we had Steve Engstrom on as a guest a while back, and Steve apologized for all that. And I accept his apology. But, that being said, at the time, when they pulled that crap and tried to steal the ring and all that, I was livid. I was furious. You know, there was a meeting. Larry's father at the time and Steve Engstrom came to my house to talk to me and my mom. And I owned the ring. It was my ring, but they had it. And he wanted to write a check off and pay for that ring and settle this. And I said, there ain't a check amount you can write for that. I want the ring back. I told him I want the ring back. I stood my ground on it. So they had to return the ring. They tried to buy me off, though. Tried to pay me off. He was going to write me a check for whatever amount I wanted to keep that ring.
What is it, ladies and gentlemen?
Yep.
What's this? Oh, the hammer.
Some things are more valuable than money.
Yeah, that was the principle of it. You know, at the time, maybe I should have took a check. But at the time, it was the principle of it. They took our ring. They took the money from the Armory show that we did that night, which I promoted, by the way.
Yep.
They were just a part of it, but they took the gate. And we had a good crowd that night. That was Night of Wrestling. It's the only one we don't have on DVD. And there was probably 300 people at the Armory that night. It was a pretty good gate. I'd say there's at least $1,500 They took it all. And I couldn't get that back. There's no way to prove it, but the ring I had serialized. They didn't know it. I had serial number on every piece of steel. And the police went out and identified it, and they had to give the ring back. There's no way around it.
Exactly.
I never told Steve I did that. I told nobody I put a serial number. I serialized because back in those days you could get an etching thing with the police department. You could etch anything you want and serialize it and then register it with the police. And that's what I did.
And it was one of the smartest things that you've done.
I know. I don't know what made me think of doing that, but I just felt it was smart. You know, it made sense. And boy, did it make sense when they stole the ring. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Can you imagine the look on their face when the police showed up to check out the ring?
Both of these men totally
Yeah,
exhausted.
I can only
A
imagine.
conference between the stunned Larry and beautiful Bobby Ferrari. Oh! Forearm smash to the back of the head. Oh! The hammer!
That took a long time. It took a long time to get that all worked out. Where they had to return the ring.
Now, as I remember, Bobby Ferrari was really good with all of us kids.
Yeah, some of these adults were pretty cool. Like, they all weren't like Larry. Ken Boyer, the guy reffing, great guy. He would do a lot of announcing for us. He was a great announcer. He could have been hired by the AWA at the time. He was that good.
Yep.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I'm glad I did. Yeah. You can see Larry's bumping here and stuff. It's a little it's just not, he's not quite there yet in the ring.
Yeah, I couldn't tell right there if he was going for an elbow drop or a leg drop.
I don't think he knew.
And Steve realized that, and he was just like, I'm getting out of the way.
You know, Grizzly Stevens was one of their NCWA guys in the beginning. Steve Johnson. Great guy. Nice guy. Too nice to be in wrestling, really. So not all these guys were. Jeff Dinsmore, another. He was a guest with us. I have good memories of Jeff. Not all the guys had the mindset that Larry did. I just want people to make sure they realize that.
At this moment, a stunned Pretty Boy Taylor and a most confident, luscious Larry pacing around in the ring.
You know, as a commentator, it's the commentator's job to put the boys over, right? In the match. Ken Boyer, the guy that's reffing right now, but if he would do the stick and he'd be commentating, and when we had our matches and he'd have to commentate for him, he did nothing but put us over.
Exactly.
So, he passed away, Dave, Ken Boyer, about 5 years ago. He got cancer. One of those unlucky guys that had to get cancer. And
you hear that from beautiful Bobby Ferrari? No, it's the figure four. Oh no, leg breaker! Ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, this is. So I don't know, Dave, if you think about it, it's probably this match that Steve and Larry had where the wheels were turning in Larry's head that we need to take this out from under the kids and do our own thing.
Yep.
They got this big crowd there to see him. They think they're the attraction. But what they don't realize is all these people here, 450 fans, aren't just fans of them. They're fans of 2 years of our show.
Exactly.
And fans of all the other matches that night. In addition to this, that's what Larry missed. He missed that part. He just thought it was all because of him.
I mean, in jest, I say that it's me that made it a sellout. But I only do that giving Crusher a bad time, knowing that it's the only quote sellout that we had, and I was on the show.
Dave, I know that.
Exactly.
You don't have to explain it to me.
Well,
I know that.
I just thought for our viewers, I would let them know that when I joke about that, it's
tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you, we were so excited after this one. You know, it was a great, a great night. Everybody was pumped up after this one. It was a week or two later, we went to Dell's Pizza down there in Anoka, had a big party down there in the basement, had pizza. We did a private screening of the show so everybody could watch it and have pizza, play games, have fun. That's what we did to celebrate because we had so much money. We had so much money after this one. I mean, it was a big, huge gate for us. And we were nonprofits, so nobody got paid or anything, right, individually. But I figured let's put a little bit of the money to a fun night. You know?
And I mean, you get 15, 20 kids. You know, what do we do? 10, 15 pizzas and pitchers of pop and games and...
Yeah. Yeah, we spent couple hundred bucks or whatever. We probably brought in a couple thousand, though, I'm sure, on this. I don't know, I want to say at least $1,500 to $2,000. No, this one was over. This one was close to $3,000, Dave, if I remember. It was somewhere between $2,500 because it was the concessions that brought in a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
And these everybody bought one of these program guides. You know, and they're 75 cents a crack.
Exactly.
So,
what is he going to do?
you know, between the radio spots and the morning show and how I got all that for free, you know, just giving away tickets, to the posters getting put up, to the TV show on cable, it all works, right?
Yep.
I mean, it all
Well,
ends
and
up
that's the
working
thing. That's the thing a lot of people have to think about too. Yes, we made $3,000 on this night, but you figure those programs aren't printed for free.
Yeah, I mean, it costs money. There's things that have to be paid back, and then we want to, you know, invest in other cars. You know, Brooklyn Park was an investment from this show.
Yep.
So we had to rent that armory out. People say, well, how did you do that without any insurance? Back then, guys, they didn't ask for insurance. It wasn't
They didn't ask, and we didn't tell.
They didn't ask, we didn't tell. I wanted to do other things. I wanted to do the Pumpkin Bowl, the outside football field at the school. They wanted insurance. They were okay. They would entertain that, but they wanted us to have insurance for the whole thing. And I started making calls, and I started hearing numbers that were way out of our ballpark.
Yep.
So I knew that insurance wasn't going to be an option for us. So the Armory didn't ask for insurance, and I didn't bring it up. They didn't bring it up. Nowadays, they want insurance. Because we looked at it recently for that reunion show 20 years ago. They needed insurance for that, to do it, so.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I just can't.
Yeah, I used the local print shop at Anoka to do all our posters, tickets, program guides, and stuff like that.
You see there, Larry and Taylor locking up?
Yeah. But yeah, that's what it was. It was all that legwork. And the other thing I didn't talk about was sponsors. Like if you look at this program guide, you'll see like it has the Northern Bank in there. We have another one. Rapid Sports Center's got a banner up in the building there. They all paid for that. Yeah. First National Bank, Art Global Ford. So those are all spots that I would get. I'd go to these businesses and get them to sponsor us. So they give us, $50, $100. I think Rapid Sports Center paid $100 for that banner. They have it up in the building. That's all just more money to go towards the whole thing. So, because there's down payments you got to make and stuff. So to get that kind of money, I'd need to get sponsors. That's what we would do. We go to the local businesses and hit them up. Imagine, Dave, a 16-year-old kid coming in saying, hey, we're going to do this armory event at the Anoka Armory. We're going to do professional wrestling. Can you sponsor us? Give us some money?
Hey.
Not every business would.
As expected, but...
Kick
Yeah.
to the gut.
A lot of them did.
Pretty boy Taylor.
Car
not
dealerships, the
retaliating,
banks, they were
a kick to the face.
they were pretty willing to give us some money.
You gotta do that. 5 minutes. Yeah, did you do that yet? Say 5 minutes in the match.
You can tell right here, Larry's totally blown up.
He is.
Remarkable, ladies and gentlemen.
Steve had the endurance. Steve could go the distance. He just did with me the other card before, you know.
I rake. This is despicable.
So Steve, Pretty Boy Taylor, gets the win with his knee on his chest. It looked like a fluke. That's kind of how they build it. We had to cut all that out. So that was the show, folks. Here's an interesting fact, Dave. I've never thought about this until tonight, but I was thinking, this is something that I don't think I've ever mentioned in this context, but between May 9th, 1986 and August 23rd, 1987, I promoted 5 events at the Anoka Armory. Not to mention the other ones, you know, Brooklyn Park and all that. But, and Eddie Sharkey, the dual event with him. But think about it, 5 events at the Anoka Armory in a 15-month period. That's about once every 3 months on average.
Exactly.
We were just a group of kids doing that, having 450 people showing up and stuff. You know, that's you know, I never thought of it that way, that it was in that short time frame. You know, but it's really fun to watch these big shows, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, it gets a little long, you know.
It is. It's a long night.
But you know, it's a good way for us to share our past with our longtime viewers, new viewers. It lets them know that it's not just the... And I apologize to anybody who's a fan of this, but it's not... We weren't just your garbage backyard wrestlers.
Yeah, you know, sometimes people label us that way. The thing is, though, you guys, you know, technically maybe we were, would be considered backyarders just because we weren't officially trained with a capital O. But backyard wrestling didn't exist when we did this. There was no such thing. The terminology wasn't there. So people like Eddie Sharkey looked at us as just another form of professional wrestling at a different level that was making money.
Yep.
You know, when I say making money, drawing people, right? So Eddie, that's why Eddie treated us with respect. That's why Vern Gagne didn't shut us down, and he could have.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
He could have made us stink with what we were doing. But you know, we were calling saying we were brought to you by the AWA in our credits, Dave. I mean, we weren't, but we were saying that. Our affiliation with Roy Nelson.
And you know, not to toot our own horns, but we were outdrawing Ed Sharkey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
On a per show basis, we were outdrawing Ed.
You know, it was an attraction. It was a different. Everybody could see regular professional wrestling, but to see kids doing it was a different. It was more of an attraction, I think, at that time. Plus, we had a weekly cable television show. Eddie didn't do that, so we had people watching us for years.
Yep.
And but yeah, Eddie's thing was bar cards, you know, small venues, 50 people maybe at the most. George's and Philly might add a little bit more, but you know, we were doing these armory shows, you know, and our least attended armory was July, and that was 50 people or so, give or take.
And that was a good show for Eddie.
Yeah, that would have been a good night for him. But you know,
not
Eddie
to
Sharkey,
knock him, but not to knock him, but you know.
But here's the thing, Dave. Eddie Sharkey's hearing about us doing these big events at the Armory, 350 plus. Of course, he wants to do an event with us at the Champlain Legion, and it's no surprise he picked the Champlain Legion. He's trying to get in our back. Champlin's right next to Anoka, folks.
Yep.
So Eddie's getting in our territory because he knew we would draw more there, right? So, and that was a Champlain Legion show. It's how it went. Eddie did a card without us at the Champlain Legion. It was half full. When we did our dual card, it was standing room only again.
I was there.
that dual card was right after this October card. It
Yep.
was like about a
November.
month after. Yeah. So yeah, that one of these days we'll have to do. We haven't done. I've got those on video. We should do a watch along with one of those to the dual event one of these days.
And a little tidbit for our new fans and fans alike. On that show, you will see at least one WWE Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's right. We're not talking about X-Pac.
Nope.
Not talking about Sean Waltman. That would be one Medusa Michelli.
Exactly.
He was a valet at the time, just breaking into the business with Eddie Sharkey, and she happened to be on our dual event as a valet. Yep. So, small world in wrestling, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
This was a fun night. I enjoyed it. Long night for Dave and I, though. Like I said, we're not going to go too much longer, guys. If you have any questions, let's get them. We'll take them here quick. But otherwise, we're gonna wrap it up fairly early because we both
have
days
early
tomorrow.
mornings tomorrow.
Yeah. Next week, folks, I'm thinking.
In 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's right. We go every other week. I'm thinking we're gonna get back to the cable show again, and we'll take a break from the armories. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but we'll pick one that we haven't watched yet. We'll pick a show and roll with that for our next show. So we'll be back to probably just a normal hour show of the actual wrestling, and then a little bit after hours, and back to our normal kind of routine for Dave and I. Thanks, Gizmo, for tuning in. Insightful and entertaining, another great show. Yep, we appreciate you guys tuning in every week and asking questions. It's great. I love answering them. Guys, if I'm being, this event was a big night for us. So if I'm kind of bragging a little bit, I'm apologizing now because Dave and I are really proud of this night, and I don't want to sound like I know it all. I don't. But we really, this show, I didn't want to come off that way. I hope I didn't. But this was a big
If we did, we
for us.
apologize, but it was,
Yeah.
It was a highlight for both of us,
Yeah. This is a great live, good show. Good getting your perspectives on the show. It was cool looking back with y'all. I'm definitely going to be coming to the next live stream. Well, thank you a lot, King Coop. Appreciate it. I'm glad you found us through Brian. Like I said, just so you know, and you can see all the comments on the videos and stuff, and everybody likes that old man Tronson. That's the big highlight there. Because Brian did a really, really funny thing on that. And if Brian knew the real Scott Tronson, he wasn't anything like he thought he was. He wasn't an old man. He was a young schmuck. But yeah. But that's where King Coop came from. He came from the Brian saying stuff. So that's cool. We're going to get Brian on one of these days, Dave.
And King Coop, remember to like and subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when we're on air.
Yeah, if you hit that bell, you guys, then you'll be notified that we're going live, so you won't ever miss us. We go live every other week, so every other Thursday. So, yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed the show. Like I said, we'll go back to the regular. We'll go back to the regular TV tapings next week. We'll pick one and roll from there. So.
Alrighty. Well, we thank you for joining us. Come back and join us again anytime. Watch our previous videos. Get all up to date on what we've done. And join us again 2 weeks from now. Enjoy your Halloween. Be safe. We'll see you then.
See you next week. Or see you 2 weeks, folks. 2 weeks.